Good morning and welcome. It is fabulous to see all of you here, and it feels so good to gather as a community in 3 dimensions for the first time in over a year. Welcome new members of the faculty. We are very glad you have joined us. Returning faculty, it is wonderful to see you here together in your regalia, or those of you who are still in your regalia. Staff, it's great to see you here as well. I cannot possibly thank our faculty and staff adequately for all the work you have put in, once again, not just to get us ready to open the new year, but to get us through the past year and a half. I regret that the pandemic seems determined to linger a bit longer, and I want to thank you in advance, all of you, for your patience as we navigate these next several weeks to protect the health and safety of all members of the community while moving forward with our educational mission. And of course, I want to offer a very special welcome to the members of the class of 2025 and to our new transfer students. I hope you are beginning to feel settled and have had a good experience in orientation, ASAP, and for some of you, preseason practice. I imagine that at this point, you're ready to get this show on the road. Convocation marks the formal induction of your class into the Bates community and into the community of scholars, and it serves as a kind of bookend to commencement 4 years later. Indeed, this morning and commencement, which for you will be May 2025, are the only 2 times in your Bates career that you come together as a full class. Let me give you a sense of how this ceremony will proceed. After a few words from me, you will be welcomed by your student government co-presidents, Kush, Sharma, and Marcos Pacheco Soto. Following Kush and Marcos, we will hear brief remarks from the Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of Faculty, Malcolm Hill. We will then have the convocation address delivered by Associate Professor of Mathematics, Katie Ott. Finally, at the end of the ceremony, Brittany Longsdorf, our Multifaith chaplain, will lead us in a benediction, after which we will process out as we processed in, led by the mace bearer and our faculty marshals. There will then be a brief tree planting ceremony honoring those members of the community who died during this past year, and all are invited to attend. Before I turn to my own remarks, I want to introduce our main speakers today. In a few moments, you will hear greetings from the co-presidents of the Bates College Student Government, or BCSG, Kush Sharma and Marcos Pacheco Soto. Kush is a junior from Delhi, India, majoring in environmental studies and theater. He has been active in a number of Harvard Center initiatives, worked as a junior advisor, and served as a class rep and secretary in the Bates Student Government. Marcos, class of 2024, is from Santiago, Chile. He has been involved in the Equity and Inclusion Peer Advisor Team, on the Student Affairs Committee, and with the International Club, Latinx Unidex, and the Rugby Club. He plans to major in politics. Delivering the convocation address will be Associate Professor of Mathematics, Katie Ott. In recent years, we have revived an earlier convocation tradition of asking the outgoing senior class to choose a professor to speak to the incoming first years at convocation. In effect, Professor Ott is a gift from the class of 2021 to the class of 2025. They chose very well. Professor Ott has been a member of the Bates faculty since 2014. She studies the intersection of harmonic analysis and partial differential equations and is committed to the work of sharing mathematics with the general public and diverse audiences through written communications and other outreach. She's also very involved in programs that aim to increase the participation of women in mathematics. Her remarks today are titled, "Where Do We Even Begin?" Before I turn the podium over to Kush and Marcos, I'd like to say a few words to all of you. but mostly to the entering class and our transfers. I would like to think with you this morning about a project that is central to everything we do at Bates, and I hope central to what you wish to get out of your college experience: the project of truth-seeking. By this, I do not mean a search for universal or immutable truth. Rather, I mean acquiring the motivation to seek and the tools to discern important truths, multifarious as they may be. This means figuring out what is and isn't true about the world through the knowledge you will gain and the connections you will make across multiple kinds of problems and ways of knowing. It also means figuring out what it is and isn't true for you, who you are, what you're interested in, what you value, and how you plan to move through the world. These two projects, figuring out what is and isn't true about the world, and what is and isn't true about you, are linked. That's what we mean when we say that our mission at Bates is to educate the whole person. Because only you, following your authentic interests, thinking things through on your own terms, and discussing your theories and ideas in the classroom and in random conversation, can develop an authentic and coherent view of how you want to live your life. This is no easy task in the world as we find it today. We are reminded again and again, as we are barraged with different versions of reality through myriad separate channels, that we cannot afford to take at face value the facts, theories, or solutions that are offered up as truth. Nor can we afford to assume that the values reflected in the Bates mission statement or the fundamental norms of a liberal arts education will endure if we do not tend to them. One often hears academic leaders say, and I am guilty of this myself, that college campuses are a microcosm of society. It is true that campuses mirror trends in the larger society in any number of ways. Yet we are not, strictly speaking, a microcosm of society. We are first and foremost an educational community charged with a particular task: supporting you, our students, in a developmental project that is about you. It is an important project, and it is hard. As the poet E.E. Cummings has observed, it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. Our role as a college, your college, in this project of truth-seeking is to create the conditions that will guide and support you as you make choices about how you will live your life, beginning now, with the choices you make about the courses you will take, the friends you will make, and how you spend your time during the next 4 years at Bates. As I have learned in my own life, it is hard to figure out at any given moment which decisions are the authentic and correct decisions for you. It is easy to measure your own success against the impressive lives and careers of the people you admire, whether it be Michelle Obama, Lin-Manuel Miranda, or Dr. Fauci. Yet these compelling life stories emerge only when you look backward over a life. The problem with your own life, however, is that you have to live it looking forward, not backward, and you don't know what it looks like from the front end. It has no shape. Your path is not carved out. There are no trail maps or handy signposts. As a famous scholar of religion and myth, Joseph Campbell, once said, "If the path before you is clear, you're probably on someone else's." If your path is not clear, how are you supposed to make authentic decisions, you might ask? Here I would suggest that you need to focus not on the big question, what should I do with my life, or even, what should I major in, which can be downright paralyzing. Rather, focus on the how of making each decision as it arises. You've probably heard of the Chinese saying, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." So at any given point, you'll probably make better decisions if you keep it simple and ask, Does this feel like the right next step for me? Here, your best guides are your curiosity, your thirst for connection, intellectual and human, and the courage to take some risks. I urge you to explore courses in fields you've never been exposed to before, to sit at a table in commons with people you don't know and actually introduce yourself, or try out for a play, even if you've never been on a stage in your life. We, the college, carry out our part of the bargain if we live out and model for you our core principles as an educational community. We are a culture of persuasion, not dogma. We honor the fact that complex problems are in fact complex, that solving them depends on persistence, precision, evidence, and bringing to bear multiple sources of understanding. We distinguish rationalizations used to justify our views after the fact from reasons that allow us to develop informed views in the first place. We celebrate the understanding that comes from analysis and substantive debate. We pressure test ideas as well as proposed approaches for accomplishing the things we are trying to accomplish. And we recognize that everyone on this campus, be they student, faculty, or staff, is on a journey that is best supported by a culture that values curiosity, openness, and generosity. As our mission states, we prize engagement with difference as a source of strength and transformation. Difference takes many forms. We have differences in disciplinary expertise, viewpoint, identity, life experience, and access to opportunity, power, and resources, to name a few. And we produce better solutions on our own campus, in our work, and for the world at large when these differences are the starting point for conversation, not barriers to good faith questioning and discussion. Unless we treat difference as the starting point for discussion, we have little hope of achieving the goals of equity and belonging that are central to an education that is meant to transform lives. No student can learn and grow and realize their full potential unless they are seen and valued, and in turn feel that they belong at Bates and Bates belongs to them. This only happens if we're willing to question and modify our inherited norms in what and how we teach, in how we see and portray ourselves as an institution, and in how we organize or support all aspects of college life. Creating an educational community that is equitable and inclusive, and producing graduates who have experienced college this way is, I believe, our best hope for making progress toward a more just society. Each one of you in the class of 2025 and our transfer students has had a different path that has brought you here. Some of you may have spent your first week at Bates looking around at your fellow students and worrying that you won't belong here, that you don't know the unspoken rules, that you won't like the people, or that they won't like you. Then again, some of you may be absolutely sure that you do belong here. You may be one of those people who has waited your whole life to sit in a philosophy class, to consider humanity's most basic ideas and learn to build an argument. In a politics class, to understand how power is defined and distributed in different societies. In a physics class, to ask fundamental questions about the origin of the universe. Whatever thoughts and fears may have been knocking around in your heads these past few days, I encourage you now to relax and to stop holding fast to the things that got you here. The narrative that you are pre-med or will major in history when you haven't even taken your first college course. The identities that have defined you throughout high school. The assumption that if you don't hurry up and find a small group of like-minded peeps, you are doomed to a life of social isolation. Think of these next 4 years as a time to try new things, to step back and broaden the frame. As the poet Rainer Maria Rilke put it, the point is to live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. As you meet new people and dive into your classes this week, begin to think consciously not only about the subject matter you'll be learning, but also about the assumptions and values that are reflected in the way your classes are structured, in the kind of material we ask you to grapple with, and in the ways your professors invite you to express yourselves. Finally, I urge each of you to take heart from the fact that the differences that make Bates vibrant and exciting are matched in equal measure by our common bonds as human beings on a quest. You are young, you are curious, you are new to most fields and ways of knowing, and you are just beginning your journeys as adults making choices about where to focus your attention, your labor, and your search for meaning, contribution, and human connection. This is a thrilling place to be. It is all yours, but you are not alone. We are here to help you carve out your own path and to walk along with you as you embark on this next phase of life's journey. Now, please join me in welcoming Kush Sharma and Marcus Pacheco's Soto.
Namaste. इस शुभ दिन पर मैं आप सभी का स्वागत करना चाहता हूँ. My name is Kush Sharma, class of 2023, and I'm the co-president of the Bates College Student Government.
Hola, muy buenas tardes a todas, todos y todes. Bienvenidos. I am Marcus Pacheco Soto, member of the class of 2024 and co-president of the Bates College Student Government.
President Spencer, respected members of the faculty and staff, and most importantly, class of 2025, good morning. We're joyful to be here and have immense gratitude to be a part of this special day with all the past and new members of this beautiful community.
It is a difficult time for us to express how we have felt during what feels both like a brief and yet long time at Bates. The pandemic has highlighted global inequalities even more than in previous times, and for us, being here today is an extraordinary privilege considering the situation of regions around the world. Having you all here today and throughout your time at Bates becomes an opportunity and a privilege that we have to reflect on and look towards a collective effort that makes our college campus and the world a better place.
Today marks the beginning of your college career, and as you embark on this important journey here at Bates, we want you to know how proud and excited we are to be sharing this day with you. Coming only as messengers of our own experiences, we could sense, since the moment we saw you arrive at Underhill, the feelings of empowered youth taking this new step in their lives.
We know it's been a long and challenging road so far, and who knows what else is to come. But we want you to take a second to look at the people sitting beside you, feel the little nip that's in the air, if there's any nip, and celebrate this moment. You made it. We hope that this year you experience what it is like to be exposed to peers that challenge you and support you, help you build a strong, vibrant community with a clear desire for social justice and consciousness that we aren't here uniquely to become skilled professionals, but to also serve as humans who engage the transformative powers of our differences, cultivating intellectual discovery and informed civil action.
And with about 500 or so different ideas or thoughts that we have here on the quad with us, the question that pops up is, how do you pursue your wishes while also navigating through the sea of differences? With the past year and a half of the pandemic, what we hope we have learned, if nothing else, is how we live in a society that is deeply flawed and inequitable, and these flaws and inequity run deep in our society. We can choose to ignore them and pursue what we aspire to do without any acknowledgement of these differences, or we can choose to fight for a society where every idea, thought, individual, no matter what walks of life or experiences that they have an equal opportunity at getting what they aspire to do. Think of the thing that you're excited about, and then think of a way in which we can come together and support each other in living that. Offer compassion, be each other's voice, fight for what's not fair, and embrace the discomfort that comes with actively addressing and acknowledging the ills of our society. Think of all the things we have in common, and as you try to find that something that you're excited about each day for the next 4 years at Bates, embrace and create a culture where the collaborative excitement matters.
On a final note, we would like to thank the orientation and arrival teams for putting all the activities together, to the staff members at the testing center and at Commons, to the different athletic teams who assisted with move-in, to the Rest Life and Campus Life teams, ASAP leaders, and to my beloved peers at the Orientation Week leadership team, AKA the Owls. Once again, thank you for being here with us today. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day and get to engage in all the events that have been prepared for you. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Kush and Marcos. That was fantastic. Well, welcome everyone to the new academic year. First-year students, on behalf of the faculty, welcome to Bates. We are very much looking forward to teaching you in classes, labs, in the field, and in the community that we're a part of, and we know you have much to teach us. Convocation is a pivotal event. When together we anticipate the academic year before us, while we also reflect on the college's long history and our place, and today what I want to talk about is your place as you enter this institution, your place in this history. And we're at a historic moment at the school. This week, the Bonney Science Center opens for its intended purpose. This beautiful facility right down the road there creates new dynamic spaces for learning, research, and discovery. It builds on a tradition of science excellence at Bates and joins the venerable Carnegie Science Hall right here at the corner of the quad, and Dana Chemistry Hall right here undergoing renovation as the coordinates of 3 centers of science at Bates. We're profoundly grateful to Mike and Allison Bonney, class of 1980, the Bonney family, and many other donors who made this building possible. We're also grateful to all the Bates employees who contributed to its construction and its manifestation on campus. The Bonney Science Center will foster student and faculty engagement in science with new ways of working together, using technology and crossing disciplines to address some of the most urgent questions of our time. In developing the Bonney Science Center, the architects worked with our faculty and staff to design a building that is both highly functional and also honors Bates's commitment to ensuring excellence and inclusion in STEM and its accessibility to all fields of study. The goals were to create spaces for course-based research at all levels, places that accommodate all types of learners, and environments in which students, faculty, and academic staff can work together collaboratively to make new discoveries and cultivate the best educational experience possible for all. This is a building that will serve all disciplines to generate innovative teaching for years to come. This moment has real similarities with one more than a century ago, when Carnegie Hall was dedicated in January 1913. Before Carnegie was built to house biology, botany, and physics, these subjects had been taught for more than 30 years in one room in Hathorne Hall, before moving to John Bertram in 1899. A chemistry lab opened on the top floor of Hedge Hall in 1890. At this moment in Bates history, the sciences were wedged in here or there, but science was in the process of radical transformation. Around this time, in the late 1890s, a young science student conducted her studies in physics in these buildings. Stella James would become the first African-American woman to graduate from Bates, earning second honors in physics. After she graduated, Stella James Sims taught science courses at 3 colleges in Virginia and West Virginia over a nearly 40-year career. And this year, the Bonnies, the Bonney family, Mike and Allison, also named an endowed chair in chemistry and biochemistry in the honor of Stella James that Dr. Paula Schlax will occupy. When President George Colby Chase reflected at the dedication of Carnegie, which appeared in the Bates College Bulletin of June 1913, he was astounded at how science had advanced within his own lifetime, from telegraphy to aviation to medicine. These developments, he said, were so recent it was difficult to comprehend their significance. But the imperative to study sciences in the context of the liberal arts was indisputable. By 1913, Bates had come a long way in teaching sciences. The college hired its first science professor in 1866, Richard Stanley, professor of chemistry and geology, He also taught physics, astronomy, and zoology, and political economy, and evidence of Christianity. Stanley taught all of the sciences, which compared well with other colleges, said Chase, until classics professor Johnny Stanton took up teaching ornithology. Under the mentorship of this two-person science faculty, several students went on to graduate study and became professors and scientists. In 1901, the first academic staff were hired, including Bates's first female lab instructor, Josephine Neal. By 1907, there were 13 people employed in science work at Bates, including an astronomer geologist, 2 physiologists, and a cadre of undergraduate research assistants. So these were the first student researchers, something that you all are going to get some experience with. President Chase pointed out then that despite the meager size of the science faculty, they were embracing the most current and provocative developments in the field. Bates faculty were teaching, and I say this as an evolutionary biologist, Darwin's Origin of Species. Chase then said they were doing this 20 years before the average professor in a New England college felt safe to admit that he took Darwin seriously. Bates has always tried to position itself at the forefront of STEM education, so I'm glad to see that. So just imagine the excitement of faculty and students when Carnegie Science Hall opened in 1913, at a time when scientific knowledge was exploding. It is still exploding. A brand new building anchoring a corner of the quad in Carnegie Science Hall. 40-person labs, a lecture room, new instrumentation, a mechanical drawing room, 2 dark rooms, a vivarium for an animal colony, and a taxidermy lab. Most of all, Carnegie provided an astonishing amount of space and a destination for science at Bates. Through several renovations, Carnegie exclusively would serve the sciences at Bates until Dana Chemistry Hall opened in 1965. Likewise, the Bonney Science Center creates astonishing new spaces for teaching, learning, interaction, cooperation, invention, and hard work of scientific discovery. Today, 56 years after Dana opened, 108 years after Carnegie was dedicated, 131 years after students started doing chemistry labs in Hedge, and 164 years after the first science courses were taught in Hathorne Hall, we celebrate a new chapter in science education with the Bonney Science Center, another beacon for STEM at the college. And we very much look forward to your contributions in STEM, in the humanities, in the social sciences, and in interdisciplinary studies as well. I wish you the best luck as you start out your voyage. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I want to start with some very important thank yous this morning. I want to thank the student speakers, Kush and Marcos. You had a fantastic message and you set the bar high. I want to thank everyone involved in the planning and execution of this event, especially the staff. We are so lucky to be gathering all together today outdoors. As Clayton said, it's been a really long time. I'm extra excited for the fine weather today so that we can have a picnic after the ceremony. I have missed Commons goodies. Lastly, I wish to give a heartfelt thanks to the class of 2021 for this distinction. The last academic year left me, like many of my colleagues, utterly drained. To be chosen by the senior class, me, a math professor, it is a great honor, and the invitation was so energizing and uplifting. Thank you, class of 21. Speaking of the class of 21, I want to reminisce just for a minute because it fills me with a lot of hope. In such a tumultuous year, they demonstrated incredible resilience. I'm thinking about all the seniors who applied to graduate schools and jobs via Zoom, accepting offers and making major life decisions without ever having stepped foot on their future campus or job site. I'm thinking about student leaders who organized despite all the rules and regulations and made sure their voices were heard on issues of race and power on this campus. I'm thinking about the group of seniors who applied for the Watson Fellowship, who dreamed up a year of unlimited travel while the US had travel restrictions on nearly every country in the world. The senior rowers who trained in masks and ended up national champions, performers who held their final concerts virtually and heard no live applause, and the seniors who took math camp with me in the winter because there were no other available electives to complete their minor. First years, just ask an upper class student about whether or not math camp is a good senior class. I congratulate them again on these and all the other accomplishments, which are way too many to note here. And if you're listening, I hope that you're faring well in all your post-grad endeavors. When I look out at you, the Bates class of 2025 and transfer students, I admit that I don't know any specific anecdotes about your accomplishments over the last year or 4 years. Full disclosure, this may have been in an email that I didn't read, but honestly, I feel just as proud of you as I do of the class of 2021. This may come across as a bit disingenuous, but it's not. I know that you share many of the great qualities of the class of 2021 because you too, you persevered, you pivoted, you followed through with your plans and dreams, adjusting a lot when necessary. You made a major life decision, where to attend college entirely over Zoom, and so much more. So I congratulate you and your support networks for arriving here. At the same time, I want to acknowledge that your arrival to Bates and your journeys over the last 12 or even 20 months have been challenging and not at all what you expected. There was pain and suffering, and for some, trauma. I am tasked today with giving some thoughts on how to embark on this next chapter of your life. Well, in a math book, chapters don't stand alone. They build in complexity, one on each other. I am confident that in this new chapter, you will all build on the experiences that brought you here and on the achievements of the class of 21 and 22 and 23 and 24 and accomplish many great things. So where do we begin? That question feels way too light. It feels so 2019, and this is 2021. It's hard to think about where to begin the next chapter after all that has happened, all that is still happening. Where do we even begin? This question, the title of my talk, is big and vague on purpose. I really had no idea what I was going to say when the due date for my title arrived. Well, and today I'm sorry to say I won't be answering that big question for us in the next few minutes. Instead, like the mathematician that I am, I will try to offer something useful on just one small part of the big question. Where do we begin in our college classroom starting tomorrow or Thursday? First, some reassurances. You aren't here because of how many books you read or how many pages you wrote in your English class last year, or how many you didn't read or write. You are not here because of how many topics you covered in math, or how many you didn't get to. The syllabuses of the past 2 years, they're out of our control. Your upcoming syllabi, where you begin the content of your fall classes, well, that's up to your professors. And I can guarantee they are thinking very carefully about these issues, even as I speak. What you do have control over, and where your focus should be during this transition to college classes, is beginning the semester off with the right mindset, a growth mindset, and good learning habits. With this in mind, I'm going to offer just 3 suggestions or tips for actions that you can take starting from the very beginning, starting tomorrow, to help with this transition to your college classes. These are pieces of advice I've given over the years to many first years, especially calculus students, though I've edited them and made them a little more general to hopefully transcend just math. They are things that I think you can all try out, regardless of whether you learned in person, remotely, or hybrid last year, or perhaps even took a gap year. First up, build relationships where you can ask questions. I have a PhD in math. I publish papers with colleagues who also hold PhDs in math. We work on theoretical mathematics, partial differential equations, and harmonic analysis. And the papers appear in international journals. That sounds awfully fancy. Do you know what kind of questions occur regularly during my research meetings with collaborators? Me. Hold up. Where did that 0 come from? My collaborator. Slight frown, maybe a pause. We added a 2 up here and then subtracted 2 down here, so that makes 0. There is no judgment, and we move on. This scenario will repeat itself multiple times with the roles reversed and different questions, but no one is keeping track. From my own experience, I know that it's a heck of a lot easier to start asking questions like, where did that 0 come from the get-go? At least in math, when you're in the midst of a problem, if you wait 20 minutes before asking, then you're buried under more and more lines of calculations. If you wait 20 days after beginning to work together, then you've built a relationship under false pretenses. It's still possible to recover a healthy collaboration, but it's difficult. This might look a little different in your classrooms. I'm not advocating that you interrupt your professors and classmates with questions unless invited to do so. I'm encouraging you to be honest and forthcoming about where you are with your understanding and meet your peers where they are with their understanding. Don't let questions or confusions get buried. I've heard some educators talk about building a classroom where students feel comfortable failing. Yes, that sounds great. I strive for that. But for me, I prefer to focus on building a space where students are able to ask questions like, where did that 0 come from? If we're with people we are comfortable asking questions, then failures can be reimagined as asking, why didn't that work? It's outside the scope of what I said I would offer, but I can say that if you work on creating these types of relationships with your classmates, it's pretty likely they will become friends too. My second tip for starting this academic year is make play out of your academic work. I have a 4-year-old who started pre-K last week. I ask him every day what he did in school, and so far, 6 days running, he gives the same exact answer. Play. I'd love more details from him, but this simple answer is satisfying to me. Satisfying because 4-year-olds need play, but also because play is a really important component in learning math and beyond. Francis Su, a professor of mathematics at Harvey Mudd College, author of the phenomenal book, Mathematics for Human Flourishing, and last year's Sampson Lecturer in Math at Bates, says it all better than I can. Doing math properly is engaging in a kind of play, having fun with ideas that emerge when you explore patterns, and cultivating wonder about how things work. It's highly likely that those of you in a math class this fall may hear phrases from your professor like, play with the numbers in this example, or play with the graph and see what happens to your solution. And we mean it. Tinker, try, experiment, and take notice of what changes and what doesn't. Wonder. In other disciplines, maybe the word play won't be invoked, but I can guarantee that in all of your studying, it's a useful exercise to play with the ideas at hand. Change your perspective. Look at a problem from a different viewpoint. Make up a new scenario. Put things in a different order. And well, even if you don't group these types of study activities in the same bucket as video games or sports, keep in mind another important aspect of play. It's meant to be low stakes. Play allows us to explore and learn separate from the validation of a grade or a checked box. Sometime between pre-K and college, and most definitely in the last year, I think many of us lost this connection between play and learning. So let's try to rekindle it. Finally, my third and last suggestion for a great start to your college classes is talk to people about your work. I used to save this suggestion for students in my upper level classes, thinking about helping them prepare for job interviews and the like. But why wait? Starting this very week, I encourage you to start talking about what you are doing in class. Linger after class, or visit office hours to talk with your professors about their class or another one. Share some of what you are doing in your classes when you check in with your family and friends from home. Work in study groups, and yeah, talk out loud with your classmates about what you're doing. Make what you are doing in class a part of your everyday conversations with friends, teammates, roommates, coworkers, and so on. Inevitably, these conversations will spin outward from the academics, and that's not only okay, that's awesome. Talking about what we are doing in class is a great launching point to conversations that we need to be having, conversations about identity, community, society. In the next 4 years at Bates, you aren't just building a transcript. You will be building a story. Talking about your work, sure, it is a great way to reinforce learning, but it also lets you begin the journey narrative that has you as the main character. We may still be wearing masks this fall, but I'm hoping that we can unmute ourselves. I promised to try and give you something useful for your first day of classes, so here's a quick recap. Do your best to leave any insecurities or questions about preparedness aside. When classes begin, focus your energy on forming a growth mindset and establishing good habits. My suggestions are to build relationships where you can ask questions, to incorporate play into your studying, and to talk about your academic work out loud. How did I come up with this list of 3? Well, how did I write this speech? I was, of course, thinking about COVID the whole time. When are any of us not thinking about the pandemic? But I want to emphasize that what I've listed here, they aren't suggestions meant to help you catch up from any kind of COVID learning loss. We actually have the opportunity to gain a head start if we can build a healthy learning community. In truth, this speech finally took shape when I pivoted from thinking about the class advice for the class of 2025 to thinking about where to even begin in my own classroom with my own teaching in order to best meet students' needs in this year. And here's what I'm planning. I plan to give extra time for students to get to know each other and work together in class with the hope of creating a space where we are all comfortable having questions and, yeah, sometimes failing. I plan to make play an explicit part of my classes. Finally, I plan to talk less and listen to my students more. And on that note, I will also stop talking to you. So thank you very much for listening. I wish you all the best this academic year. I can't wait to begin this chapter with you.
Please join me in whatever posture is most at home for you for a multi-faith closing blessing. Holy One, Sacred Many, we are gathered here, held by the sacred grove of trees that has held so many Bateses before us. We've learned over the last several months that simply gathering like this is no small thing, and we are grateful. And though our excitement may be tangled with hesitance, allow us to fill ourselves up with the hope only a new school year can bring. Beloved students, you who give this place life and texture, you have spent a year hunkered down, discovering your own resilience and brilliance, growing even while staying in place. And now, for the first time in a long time, new spaces beckon. Places that will challenge and inspire you. Dinner tables where deep, profound friendships will be made. Laboratories where pivotal life lessons will be earned and learned. Dorm rooms where you'll discover another layer of who you are in an unexpected conversation. Hammocks that will offer you true rest under autumnal bliss. Benches where you will read a text that you knit into your heart and remember for the rest of your life. May you learn to bless each threshold, each new doorway you enter. Bless it by bringing all of who you are, your beautiful multitudes, into each new space. Bless it with your curiosity and compassion. Bless it with your astute mind and your deep feeling heart. Bless it with your passion and gratitude. Bless it with your desire for connection and understanding. And in turn, may you be blessed by this place. May you be blessed this new year with authenticity, deep caring, wisdom and kindness, inspiration and affirmation, and the beauty of belonging. May it be so. Amen.